ever since it was broken by Glenn Greenwald of The Guardian with the information that he was given by Edward Snowden, the former contractor for the National Security Agency. And lots of people have weighed in, but one column I read this week said we should have listened to Eisenhower. That would be Dwight Eisenhower, who said the following in his farewell speech on January 17th, 1961.
Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications.
That was President Eisenhower in his last speech before leaving the Oval Office in 1961. That speech was referenced in a column in theweek.com by my next guest, Edward Morrisey. Edward, welcome to the Big 550 KTRS.
Well, thank you for having me, sir.
When he referred to the military-industrial complex, you saw that as a precursor of what we've ended up with today?
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at the whole speech. I mean, the whole speech is really brilliant. And he not only talked about military-industrial complex, he talked about the co-opting of science and technology by government to further its power. And I mean, you're starting to see that with the internet side of this and the telecommunications side of this. And I think that there is a legitimate debate to be had about national security, about protecting Americans, but also how far do you go in doing that? And at what point do you stop being a free country? Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's a tension that always happens, but this was the type of thing that he told, that Eisenhower was warning about, in that you create these industries that become very reliant on government, such as the academic and science and technology areas. Then they become basically arms of the government. And I don't think I think 30 years ago, when people were talking about this, when the first time I'd heard about Eisenhower's speech, because this was obviously delivered before I was born, not that long, unfortunately, before I was born, but before I was born, and you kind of heard about it, and people were going, that's just the paranoids talking. But it has become a concern, and you take a look at this, and you have to wonder how much of our policy is driven by the fact that there's a lot of money and a lot of power tied up in this.
Yeah, particularly with defense contractors and people in the intelligence field who see themselves as being able to make money off of these sort of things. And I've contended for a long time that our country runs on one energy source, and that is fear. If you can keep people afraid, you can do all sorts of things. And as a civil libertarian, that bothers me, because what ends up happening is they use that fear to take away your rights.
Fear, yeah. I mean, the thing is it rational fear or is it irrational fear? A lot of this is rational fear. People are trying to attack us. We had 3,000 people killed in a terrorist attack on 9/11. We've had a number of attempts since then. Some have been successful. None have been successful on the kind of scale that 9/11 was. But there are people that really want to do damage to the United States, who really want to kill American citizens, and it is a function of government to protect its citizens. I would argue that while there's legitimate need to do that, we have to be vigilant, as Eisenhower warned, about making sure that government doesn't go over the line. And I'm not sure that we've been as vigilant as we need to be. And I think that a lot of us maybe don't understand the scope of the government's reach in these matters, and these are the things that are coming to light now.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, I want to be defended, but I don't want to pay so much of a price that we give up those constitutional guarantees. You say in your piece, we have culturally devalued privacy. What do you mean by that?
You take a look at how we operate on the internet. We demand free stuff. Free stuff. I mean, we don't pay for our email. We don't pay for a lot of the things that we do on the internet. And in return, what we're saying is, you can just monetize our traffic. You can analyze what we're doing, and so you have all of these very intrusive things that are, these are all free will choices that we're making here. But you've got Google, and you've got Yahoo and Facebook, and all these other different internet service providers who have to find a way to make money off of providing you free services. And the way they do that is they take as much information as they possibly can about you, slice and dice them up, and sell them to advertisers who then buy spots on these things that are aimed at interesting you in their products, and it's very, very intelligent. And as long as you're aware of the fact that you're making that trade-off, then I think it's, again, it's a rational decision. But the problem is that when you start doing all these things, all that information is out there for anybody to look at, not just the commercial entities with whom you are entering into a free will relationship with in order to do business, but also with governments and other people that might not be as benign as you'd like to hope. And so we have culturally devalued the idea that some of our information should be private, that we should hold it close. And the reason why I specifically use the word devalued is because we have traded it off to get free services from these companies.
Yeah.
And that's been going on for years.
And the contract that we're making with these online companies is a contract that we're supposedly aware of. Nobody actually is, because no one reads the terms of agreement, even for iTunes or anything else online.
Right.
We don't know what it is they're actually taking from us, but we assume that they are. So what do you say to the people who say, well, you're willing to give it to Google, what's wrong with the government?
Well, I mean, I think it's a fair question. As long as you understand that that's where the data is going, and as long as that's as far as it goes. What we're talking about, though, with the NSA thing, is that there's at least been an allegation that they're looking at the content, not just the metadata, not just the, if you want to call it the demographics of who you are. They're actually looking at your emails. That's the allegation. We don't know how true that is, but that's the allegation, that they're actually looking at your emails, going back and forth to see what you're saying. They're flagging terms to determine whether or not you're a threat, and that would be a serious violation of the Fourth Amendment. And that would change the nature of this country in a fundamental and substantial way. And I don't know that we've made that decision. I don't know that we've made that decision even with Google. I think that we've certainly looked at the demographics. You fill out these forms when you get these things, so that they know how old you are, what your income level is, where you live, and that sort of thing. But I don't know that people are really realizing that at least the potential is there for a very intrusive look at everything that you do, as well as who you are on the Internet.
And that may explain why 56% of the people in a couple of recent polls say, you know what, I support what the NSA is doing, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think you're going to find people who are willing to say in a rational, fully informed decision that they would make that trade-off. Because of the nature of the threat that's around them. I mean, one of the people that I spoke to recently compared it to World War II. This is what happened in World War II. In fact, Lindsey Graham made this argument. In World War II, we were censoring people's mail, and that was a decision we all made because we were all in. Yeah, and it stopped after World War II, too, because we stopped it because it was no longer necessary. And so as long as we have the ability to do that, that's fine. But I don't know that people realize that that's what's been going on, that people realize that that's what's been going on.
People don't realize that because the government has not been transparent about this. And during all of this time, in our post-9/11 life and in 2 wars, the government has never actually asked us to make any of those sacrifices. Edward, I'm glad you joined me today. I will put a link up to your column on theweek.com, and thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Edward Morrisey, the writer for The Week. The column is called We Should Have Listened to Eisenhower. I'm Paul Harris. We'll take a break for the news here at the top of the hour, then come back with the board meeting with Jane Duker, Tony Messenger, and Representative John Deal joining me in the studio. Here on the McGraw Live in the Morning Show on the Big 550 KTR.